This podcast is sponsored by Go Play Sports, the brand new mobile app changing the game for grassroots. Whether it's Sunday League or five-a-side, Go Play Sports makes it easy to track attendance, manage teams and cut out the manual admin. No more endless group chats, no more chasing payments, just turn up and play. Go Play Sports. Download now from your app store.
Let's kick it off. I'm your host, Steve, and I'm joined by Ash and Uz, and we are delighted to be joined by Carl Anka. Carl, we've been hoping to get you on the pod all season, and we've just managed to pull it off before the end of the season, so thank you very much for joining us. So first of all, how are you doing on this lovely summer's day in Manchester?
The sun is shining, so Manchester's the best city on earth. That's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer once said. That's how I feel. Yeah.
Love that. Oh, just on that quickly. So Manchester's a better city than London, is it? Because we have this debate quite often.
It's not a debate. Manchester's better.
Oh,
wow. Okay.
Straight in.
It's not a debate. It's not a debate. Look, I thought I'd live and die in London. London was the greatest city on earth. I volunteered during the 2012 Olympics. I still love London. But now if I'm in London for longer than 3 days, I just start hemorrhaging money. And I'm like, I can't do this no more. Whereas one thing I do enjoy about Manchester is, one, the size. Just a little bit smaller, slightly more manageable. It means there's certain things that, let's say it's a beautiful sunny day like this, if my friend texts me going, you out, I can get to my friend in 45 minutes. Whereas in London, if I go, you out, that might take anywhere between 45 minutes or 2.5 hours because of the size. I once had a wonderful chat with a GP on the train from London to Manchester. I absolutely despise the West Coast, by the way. A GP who had done the same thing of London transplant to Manchester. And they said a line that stuck with me for a while, which is the bigger the city, the greater the loneliness. And I think the size of Manchester helps foster a stronger sense of community that is still there in London, absolutely, but it's just harder to find because it's so big and because unfortunately, it's just a lot easier to fall between the gaps in London compared to Manchester. So yeah, Manchester's better. Oh, and yeah, the chip shops are better up here too.
Interesting. Yeah, because I always try and explain it to us, and sometimes it's hard to put into words because sometimes it's a bit of a vibe, isn't it? But yeah, anyway, we'll leave that one there. That debate's settled. We've got a few more to settle on this pod. So I want to just start by rolling it back a year, guys, and I'm just going to share a quick picture with you.
Oh, you're going to share the Bilbao. You're going to bring up memories of Bilbao.
Already been mentioned.
We got to set the scene, guys. We got to remember where we were a year ago and look how far we've come. So, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Right. So this is pre-Europa League final last year. Obviously, Manchester United v Spurs. I'm even going to quickly...
Look at the optimism.
We managed to get 30 seconds with Carl just as he was heading into the stadium, and just quickly play it to you just to remind ourselves of the pre-match vibes. This is. See him. Let's kick it off. I'm with Carl Anka outside the stadium in Bilbao. Carl, how are you feeling for the game?
Good, confident.
Feeling confident? I listened to your pod, the European finals pod. You were getting the juices flowing.
Yeah.
But you were feeling nervous. You were giving that nervous energy a little bit when you think about it.
Yeah.
You're feeling a bit nervous as well, but now you're feeling confident.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't come this far just to come this far. So.
Nice. Is it the heritage? Yeah? You can feel it. Love that. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate that.
Oh.
Top man. So that was pre-match, and I was fully on the heritage vibe. Like, I think, yeah, we were there a few days before in Bilbao, and yeah, there wasn't really a tactical way we could see of winning, but it was more just we're Manchester United. So just rewinding back to Bilbao, obviously that night didn't go to plan. Can you just tell us like how you were feeling about United in general following that game? Because we were in a kebab house and I've never seen anyone as depressed over football than I saw us. He couldn't even eat, like it was that bad. So how were you feeling after the game?
Bad, really bad. Look, this is why if you listen to Talk of the Devils, someone always goes, "Oh, don't bring up Bilbao."
Yeah,
because
Andy normally, isn't it, who brings it up?
Yeah. And we're recording that podcast. There's quite a few bits that didn't make the edit because there was a bit where I truly spiraled.
Good.
So I'll put it this way: the morning after Bilbao, I wake up. I think I'll maybe 2.5 hours sleep, maybe 3 hours sleep at a push, because I had to leave early checkout, get on the coach to go to Biarritz, because I couldn't do, I did the planes, trains, and automobile version.
Mm-hmm.
And my coach ticket, my seat was in that seat that doesn't actually exist because the coach was too small. So they went, I'll just sit in the back. So I got the middle seat in the back row, and to my right was a Tottenham Hotspur fan. To the left was a Tottenham Hotspur fan. And they were both big lads, so I couldn't lean back into my seat all the way. And while this is going on, so I'm not hungover, I'm not this, but I'm surrounded by loads of hungover people. I'm incredibly sleep deprived. I just watched this terrible game of football. I've poured my heart out into this episode of Talk of the Devils with that sodding leaf blower that no one else can actually hear. And I noticed that one of the Spurs fans next to me is reading the on-whistle piece I did about the Europa League final. And for some reason, I don't know why I did this. Maybe I wanted some attention. I went, I wrote that, by the way. And he goes, what? And I scroll. So I show him the bio. I went, Carl Anka. I went, that's me. And he goes, oh. Looks at the screen. He goes, you're a United reporter. Ha ha. I was like, so yeah, I felt bad. I felt bad in the immediate aftermath. I wrote a piece that I finished at, I think 2:30 in the morning. That was basically, I think it was headlined, Manchester United's new reality is going to hurt. And in that immediate aftermath, I thought United were in the wilderness, and I didn't think United were going to get back to the European top table anytime soon. I thought a summer with I thought a season with no European football and no financial benefit of European football meant that it was going to be much, much harder to bring the sort of players that were going to help turn Manchester United go from 15th to 5th. Before the season started, I think I said I'd be very surprised if Manchester United finished higher than 8th. That's not to say it was impossible, but I just thought it was more like United were going to be Conference League or Europa League qualifiers again, let alone not. And Champions League was going to be a thing that we'd have to wait until the latter half of this decade for. So I was feeling bad. I was feeling miserable. I was incredibly pessimistic before a ball was kicked. And I'd say for half of the season, at least, I was going, I'm not sure about this, lads. And here we are, sunny days, smile on my face. And there are other crisis clubs in the Premier League, not Manchester United, which feels so weird.
Yep. Weird, but nice. Again, rolling it back a year, I don't know if you remember, what you will remember. Like, obviously, the day after Bilbao, we had planned our trip so that we were in the Basque region for a week to try and battle the ridiculous travel prices, right? So we decided to spend a week out there to get half decent prices. So we were on our way to San Sebastian the next day. And I don't know if you remember, we were in that bar having a drink and just like thinking about what had happened, and already start strategizing on how we can, improve ourselves in terms of transfers. But could you ever have imagined at that point we would be finishing third the following season?
Me? No, not at all. I think we're similar with you, Carl. We were like Europa League. That's realistically where we're gonna get to. The one thing though, I'd love to know your opinion. I thought, look, going into the summer, we needed to add goals, and we added goals. And that's the big difference, that from last season Amorim and this season, I think he went far more attacking. We're playing a lot of Mazraoui and Dalot at the wing backs. I just felt that the team needed a lot of goals, and I personally think they did a good job in the summer. And it was the summer recruitment that surprised me. You mentioned not having the budget potentially. What's your feeling? Did they spend more than you expected, and do you think that in hindsight they got it right?
Spent loads more than we expected, loads more. So look, Cunha gets done pretty quickly after the Europa League final, after the game against Aston Villa, and you're going, okay, that's one through the door. Mbeumo was one that I'd say probably brought me back from the edge. So I was, again, Avanti West Coast, the bane of my existence. I was on Avanti West Coast. I think I was by London Euston where
with no internet reception, right?
Oh, I think it was by London Euston, and David Ornstein broke the story that Manchester United were in for Brian and Boomer, and that was when I went, ooh, yeah, this is it. This is fun. But obviously the Mbeumo deal took the better part of a month, and that's when I'm going, not sure about this. Obviously, there was a lot of conversation about getting Benjamin Sesko, but when the deal for Mbeumo was done, that was 70 million, and the noises in and around the Manchester United were, that's it. It's got to be sell to buy, at best. Then you start hearing conversation about Benjamin Sesko, and I think I even snapped at someone on social media, and I apologise for that, where I just went, everyone's telling us sell to buy, but apparently we got bread for Sesko. What's not clicking? And then the thing that did click was that Manchester United opened up a new revolving credit facility. It seems like the higher-ups decided Sesko or whoever else was worth going into the, I know I'm not supposed to call it an overdraft, but or the company credit card, but they decided it was worth taking an increased financial hit this summer in order to create a greater swing between 15th and 5th, and they went in for it. That was that done. Now, one of my hesitancies was midfield, because I'll keep screaming about midfield until Michael Carrick's successor is signed and had a successful season. I will keep saying every single summer window, buy a midfielder, buy a midfielder, buy a midfielder. So Manchester United didn't buy one. Obviously, there was that conversation with Carlos Baleba via intermediaries, but again, Brighton wanted a large amount of money. Transfer window shut, and I'm going, right, you are going to play 3-4-3, two-man midfield, and your midfielders are Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes, or Manu Ugarte and Mainoo. I didn't think that was strong enough to finish in the Champions League. I absolutely see the methodology. The methodology noises coming in and out of the club were Manchester United believed they'd underachieved on their XG by around about 20 goals. So they went out and bought two of the XG overperformers in Brian Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha. That was their methodology. Me, being a spreadsheet nerd with my glasses, were like, don't you need a more complicated methodology than that? But here we are, and it was more successful than it was not successful. So I'm sure if you are someone in the recruitment team, someone in the data department, someone who was helping lead the game model for Manchester United, you might be going, well, told you it worked. What's next? So fair play. Hand me the humble pie. I'll eat some crow.
Yeah, well, one man we didn't mention there in terms of recruitment, Ash, impact of Le Mans this season.
Yeah, fantastic. I think he was signed as a number 2 as well, or to compete with the number 1 position, because obviously we had Bayindir and Anana at that point. But yeah, he's worked out to be a great signing. And I think if we wind it back even before Anana signed, me and Az had an interesting conversation about David Raya in terms of trying to get him to United. And obviously he's, gone on to become probably the best goalkeeper in the league, certainly this season. But what I feel confident about going forward as we look to next season and build on that title challenge and win the Premier League, I believe that we've got a goalkeeper in Le Mans where, we've got that foundation in place now. So that's really exciting, and it's a position we've covered with not having to spend too much, which is another added bonus.
Yeah, so I think we've set the scene then, talking about last season and the summer. So now looking at this season, yeah, obviously we're sitting here having
You're throwing me for a loop.
Go on.
I'm already called in 25-26 last season.
Oh yes, yeah, God, yeah.
Andy's already done it now.
Was he? Okay.
Once the final whistle was done, that is last season.
It doesn't.
Steve, can I butt in for a second about the recruitment? One reason why it's ended up being successful is because of Michael Carrick.
Yeah.
If it was Ruben, it wouldn't have.
That's a question I'd
this.
love to ask. I mean, I'm sure you're going to get onto this, Steve, but Carl, I have a slight disagreement with these guys in that I actually think this season we looked good even under Ruben at the beginning. I felt we were getting unlucky. You said you're a spreadsheet guy, right? So tell us the numbers.
No.
But tell us the numbers in terms of You know,
The
a lot of
numbers
people are saying
we talked about this on Talk of the Devils about how the underlying numbers on the Ruben Amorim were better than the underlying numbers on the Michael Carrick, and the team was looking better.
But as in
However,
better than last season, right? As in there was an improvement.
But last
Anything's
season
better than last season.
But yeah,
though,
last season was a bomb.
and trending
I
good,
understand.
and we were getting a bit unlucky in certain game states and
If you are
situations.
getting unlucky repeatedly, that doesn't suggest you're unlucky. That suggests you're not doing something properly.
And what do you think he wasn't doing properly? What was your overall?
I think he was
analysis?
I think for whatever reason, the football that was being played on the Ruben Amorim was putting a number of players in positions both in terms of positions, DMs, centre back, whatever, and also positions is in various areas of the field that they were not comfortable with. And if you put football players in positions that they are not comfortable with, they are more prone to making mistakes, and they're more prone to making bizarre, freakish streaks of luck. So while your underlying numbers may suggest you might have won that game against Tottenham Hotspur, or won that game against Everton, or won that game against Nottingham Forest, my eyeballs tell me Lenny Yoro was not enjoying the football he was playing. And Ruben Amorim going on press conferences are saying Lenny Yoro is struggling a bit, or Patrick Dorgu suffering from anxiety. That suggested to me that yes, the underlying numbers suggest that Manchester United were likely to finish probably somewhere in the Europa League places on the Ruben Amorim if he had lasted the season. I don't think they finished third under him.
100%.
I don't think they finished in the Champions League places under him. I certainly don't think they finished at a canter in the way that Michael Carrick's done. And also, I think this argument about Ruben Amorim and playing performance is completely mute, because Ruben Amorim did not get sacked because of the way Manchester United are playing. Ruben Amorim left because he had a disagreement with Jason Wilcox.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Ironically, over
moot point.
tactics.
Moot point. Moot
No, I
point.
think I think that's the key, right? It is a mute point. Not so much just over tactics. I think it's the recruitment side, right? He wanted more control over recruitment, and that's not the way Ineos want to go down. And I think it was the right decision to move him on. But I just wanted to I was just curious. And it'd be interesting to know, when you say certain players, who would you say top 3 players suffered most under Ruben versus benefit now? Obviously, Kobbie is an obvious one, but let's ignore Kobbie for now. What about like Cunha, Mbeumo?
Isn't that like a painful question? Which 3 players suffered the most under Ruben Amorim?
Yeah,
Or the
as in,
11.
or let's reverse it. Which 3 players do you think have benefited most from moving system? Apart from, let's just say Bruno and Kobbie are fairly obvious, but you mentioned Lenny Yoro as an example. Do you have any others that would be more interesting? Like you mentioned Dorgu, but he's been playing more as a winger than a wing
in the
back.
16 matches under Michael Carrick: Bruno, Mainoo, Lissandro Martinez, Dorgu,
Dallo.
Harry Maguire, Diogo Dallo. I'd say the only players that you could say perhaps didn't benefit from Michael Carrick's introduction are Brian Mbeumo and Amad Diallo. I'd say those are the main 2 where you're going, actually, yeah, they were better in the first half of the season. Now, is that because of Michael Carrick and the football he plays? Or is that because they went off to AFCON, have come back and are like, oh, hang on, I've got a bit more extra minutes in the legs? I couldn't tell you the answer there. The fact that Amad seemed better in the final 2 games of the season suggests it's not just a Carrick thing, and something could turn around there. But
Can we just
I
talk
can
about?
see the argument that people make, and we get this question a lot of, do you think Ruben Amorim deserves more credit for the foundations he laid for Michael Carrick? Or do you think Ruben Amorim created the environment that Michael Carrick has just, or do you think the club is now in a better place because of the hard work Ruben Amorim has provided? And I can see this argument. I can see the argument that Ruben Amorim came in and he ate a lot of punches in order to remove certain players from the dressing room that Manchester United fans believed were detrimental to the harmony, and that perhaps deserves some plaudits. However, the team finished 15th and they lost the cup final to Spurs in 90 minutes. My ability to enjoy that argument only goes so far. And I think there are plenty of managers out there who probably could have done the good things Ruben Amorim did, and there were good things that Ruben Amorim did that also wouldn't have finished 15th and would have delivered a Europa League trophy.
Yeah, I just want to. I know we said Kobbie was the obvious one, but we have to talk about Kobbie because, especially on this pod, early on in the season, Carl, for your benefit, we had some heated debates about Kobbie, and I was like personally offended that Kobbie wasn't in the team. When I go to Old Trafford every week or fly out to Bilbao and have to watch turgid side-to-side football, and I see someone with the talent of Kobbie Mainoo sitting on the bench, it made me sick, and I called it a disgrace that he wasn't in the team. And us made the point essentially that in Ruben's formation, Kobbie didn't really suit either the holding 2 CMs or the 2 attacking number 10s. And I remember at the time listening to you guys on Talk of the Devils, I remember you made the point specifically that, I don't know if you said Ruben doesn't like it, but you mentioned Kobbie's long range passing as a potential weakness.
The switchball.
Yeah, and also potentially ground coverage are reasons why Kobbie's not in the team. So I always feel, I play 5-a-side. I know you play 5-a-side, Carl. If you've got the talent of Kobbie Mainoo, that long range passing surely can be coached. So yeah, just tell us, do you feel that it's Ruben's formation that Kobbie didn't suit, or could Kobbie have played in Ruben's team and been effective in your opinion?
There's a series of quotes from November, so just before the Manchester derby. I actually got it saved on my computer because I went back to it so many times throughout the season when people asked me, why isn't Amorim picking Mainoo? And I went, hang on, let me just get this quote up.
Yeah.
So I asked him, this was before the Manchester derby at the Etihad, and I asked Ruben, what are the things you think he needs to develop on? And he said, here we go. So the question I asked was, you've spoken in the past about Mainoo improving in every way. What are the most important things that you look for in your midfielders? Do they need to be runners? Do they need to be passers? And then Amorim, like many managers, if you give him an A or B, he goes for option C, which is both. So he goes, everything. Sometimes it's the balance in midfield. Mainoo's really good at controlling the game, but if he plays as an 8, he has to reach the box and then return. And then sometimes he has to cover a lot of space with just 2. Bruno is doing that job. And then sometimes it's bad luck. Bruno is maybe the more influential player in the last few years, and he's been playing in that position. Mainoo could play as a 6, but sometimes he passes the ball and goes away, and it's not a reference as a 6. So we have to balance everything. I think he needs to have to have the technical ability he has, but he needs more pace. He needs to understand the position better. He needs to play in different speeds. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's faster. I think he can improve on that. And then he has to beat Bruno. And then he has Casa. And then he has to beat Manu Ugarte. And they're good players, so I need to choose. It's a good answer. It's an answer I use all the time. It's an answer that I agree with Amorim in November of 2025. In that, yeah, Mainoo was a very good small space player, clean feet, very, very press resistant ball shuttler. But if you wanted to make him as an 8 in a midfield 2, especially, he'd have to get up and down the field a lot. Ground coverage was important, particularly if you're playing in Amorim's version with 3-4-3. And Mainoo does not have that explosive first 2 steps of pace, so that made things difficult. Then he also said sometimes it's bad luck because for whichever reason, I think that's to do with the progressive passing and the long switch. Mainoo was in direct competition with Bruno Fernandes for that position next to Casemiro. And look, there's not many football players I'll put money on to dislodge Bruno Fernandes in a football team. So there was that. In terms of he could play as a 6, but sometimes he passes the ball and goes away as a reference. I think that's true. I think one of the big things that's really stood out under Michael Carrick is that Mainoo has improved himself as a reference as a 6. Particularly, I'd say, in the last 2 games that you saw against Brentford and Chelsea. Chelsea was the one where I went, here it is. We're now beginning to see the references of the 6. And you'll see, if you sort of play back all of the games on the Carrick, Mainoo at the start against Man City and against Arsenal isn't really playing as a 6. He's playing more as the box-to-box. Whereas in more recent weeks, he's becoming the 6 that is dropping deep, collecting the ball off Sané Lamens during short build-up and serving as the reference. I think part of that's due to the coaching staff around Manchester United showing him how to be the reference as a 6 in a 3. And also, I think he's definitely been taking some lessons from Casemiro as to how to do certain things. The way Mainoo now does a slide tackle with a hooked right boot is very similar to the way Casemiro does that. Now, the question was, well, couldn't Mainoo do that learning at Carrington? I think he probably learned that as well playing next to Casemiro in a 2. And this was the question, in that Amorim was never going to shift from playing a midfield 2 of Casemiro and another, and that person needed to be Bruno Fernandes. Whereas for the English media, the question was always, well, why don't you just play Bruno, Casemiro and Mainoo? And for whatever reason, Ruben Amorim said no. So here we are.
Okay. And then obviously,
Steve,
go on.
before you close on the Ruben Amorim chapter, Carl, I just have to point something out. Do you remember your very famous press conference with him last winter? I just wanted to say you were totally right on that. And I even watched I know you apologised to the club afterwards. And I remember listening to that at the time when you saying you apologised to the club. And I was thinking to myself, why? Because I even listened to it this morning just to double check I was remembering it correct. He referenced, I don't know, 3 times before you asked him that question. And you wasn't trying to get him, like have a gotcha moment. You were trying to understand where the improvements can come from, because you were right in the way you phrased it. It's like, he's saying, I don't know to certain questions, but he actually does know the answer. Like, as we talked about on the live show, I wasn't his biggest fan. But when he explained stuff, and you referenced it earlier, like, certain things about like Kobbie Mainoo as an example made sense the way he was saying it. I knew what you were getting at, but I just wanted to say, like, you were right on that. But yeah.
No, I wouldn't do that again. There's a better way to phrase the question I was trying to ask him in that situation. And I apologize, because I know in hindsight I probably could have phrased that better. So no harm, no foul, no beef between myself, Ruben Amorim, or Manchester United Football Club over that question. And we just cracked on afterwards.
Cool. So that's the Ruben inquest done. So we can now move on to the impact of Carrick. So obviously, following that Leeds away game, I actually went to that game. I think it was the 4th of Jan. Or early Jan, wasn't it? And we actually played all right that day, and we created a few chances, could have won. I know the kind of arguments.
See, now this is the thing about the underlying numbers, in that there were many matches on Ruben Amorim this season where United played all right, looked decent, but didn't get a result. And this is why I am hesitant to go the underlying numbers suggesting Ruben Amorim, Manchester United Ruben Amorim would have done things, because there were so many matches that the margins were so fine between a decent... Manchester United would play decent and they wouldn't necessarily win, whereas they'd play just like slightly off decent and they get punished ruthlessly by teams that I didn't necessarily believe were good. And I think the longer you continue with that, the more likely you were going to be towards the Europa League places than you were towards the Champions League places. And maybe things would have got better if they truly held with Ruben Amorim and they went, okay, we'll finish 6th or 8th or 7th or 8th for this season, and we'll spend some more money next summer and then go again. But I did not see Manchester United finishing, really pushing for a Champions League place, playing the football that they were playing on Ruben.
Maybe the other way of phrasing it, though, is maybe Ruben was getting his just desserts. Maybe Carrick's the lucky one. Right? The underlying numbers haven't changed, but actually we're getting the results. In the moments we needed to score a goal, we have scored a goal. And in those situations where the opposition gets in the box and shoots, it doesn't just go in the net every time.
No, okay. So this is the complicated stuff about numbers, in that numbers go very far to tell you what is going on, but you still need the eye test, and you still need what I'll call cultural context to explain the why. So, for example, why is Manchester United versus Leeds United different to Manchester City versus Leeds United? No spreadsheet is going to be able to quantify that.
Yeah. Pep Guardiola.
Well,
right?
the rivalry as well. It's a different.
Yes,
Leeds step up their intensity against us massively, right? So,
yes. Yeah. Now, the Opta supercomputer cannot quantify that intangible there, but it exists. And even as a numbers person, even as someone who's read How to Win the Premier League and expected goals, and I know PPDA and I know XGOT and I know all these things, you do have to accept there's a part of the spreadsheet, there is a part of the numbers, there's a part of the metrics that cannot quantify the intangibles of football. And at a certain point, you do have to understand magic is real.
Yeah.
Michael Carrick's magic.
Yeah.
The magic that is intrinsic to every single football team that is similar, but also sometimes different. So I'd say another thing about Ruben Amorim that, again, this is not to disrespect him, this is not to say he was bad, but one thing that you could feel the tension in press conferences, and this was very often about Mainoo, where he would be asked about academy players, and Ruben Amorim was very straightforward in that he's picking players to win football games because that's his job, and he sometimes came across in a way where he didn't necessarily seem particularly interested in the academy at this point in time, or didn't necessarily believe the academy players were going to be conducive or conductive to helping him win games as a senior team head coach. And that is fine for most football clubs in the world to be a head coach who is just focused on the first team. If you're the Manchester United head coach, you are going to get asked loads of questions about the academy. And there are certain things that, while are not necessarily mandatory in your job description, look strange if you don't do. And I think it was quite, you can choose the word here, but I do remember when Michael Carrick went to a youth game that wasn't at Carrington, and everyone went, huh.
Revolutionary.
And now is Michael Carrick doing anything that is out of the ordinary for a Manchester United head coach? Probably not. Does Ruben Amorim have reason to not go to games outside of Carrington? Yes, because he's very, very busy trying to sort out the first team. And yet, just this simple visual of Michael Carrick being at under 23 game completely changes the complexion, and you have this, again, it's that weird intangible of
cultural fit. Yeah.
Yes, you can. Yeah, that's a good way of describing it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk more about Carrick then. So obviously, when Carrick comes in, first two games, Manchester City at home, Arsenal away, 2 magnificent wins. Question on Carrick. Obviously, things are looking pretty rosy now compared to a year ago. However, I will drop the caveat, which we all know pre-season about no Europe. However, getting knocked out of both domestic cups was pretty poor to me. Obviously, Grimsby, and then I think Brighton at home was it FA Cup. So there is that caveat of, less games, which must have played in our benefit. But just in terms of Carrick, Carl, would you say he's got a clear football identity in terms of how he plays football?
Yeah, I guess so.
What would it be?
Andy on Talk of the Devil says the football that we're seeing on the Michael Carrick isn't necessarily the football he wants to play, and this is the football we've seen for 16 games is a pragmatic approach. And the more I have watched interim Michael Carrick in charge of things, I am leaning towards this opinion. I think United's out of possession plan isn't necessarily the way Michael Carrick wants to play football, but it was more about let's keep Casemiro on the field. Because again, if you think about the start of the season under Ruben Amorim, when Casemiro got substituted off when he was knackered, the team just cratered. The team's ability to do pretty much everything just went. And there were definitely moments on the Carrick went, okay, I don't think you're doing this because you think this is the football you want to play forever. I think you're doing this because this is the football you need to play right now to get results. And the best way to do that is to protect Casemiro. One thing that stood out immediately in the first game against Manchester City was the compactness of the 4-4-2 or out of possession. I spoke about this before. Very early in the first half, they try and press high. I think Mainoo presses high, trying to get the ball off Donnarumma. Bruno's maybe 30 yards behind him, and he says something, and he throws both of his arms up, and then everyone's like, oh, okay, and they drop at pace, and they file into a 4-4-2, and Mainoo's running back at pace, and then Bruno is pointing to the spot where he wants Mainoo to stop. Now, this has happened. This has been attempted multiple times. I know Ralph Rangnick wanted Manchester United to defend in a compact 4-4-2, but it didn't work because Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes wanted to play fast football. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at points in time wanted Manchester United to defend in a compact 4-4-2. Couldn't quite get the compactness between the lines in certain parts of the season, certain parts of his tenure, I should say. Erik ten Hag, very much first season, compact 4-4-2. Second season, compactness just goes. And then especially in the second half of games. And that thing stuck out immediately. I went, hang on. The order to get into a compact 4-4-2 is now with Bruno Fernandes, where normally, well, in seasons past, it would be Bruno as one of the front two running. And the space between the lines in those first two games against Arsenal and Man City was way more compact than I'd seen in Manchester United in several weeks. Then, of course, Patrick Dorgu gets injured. And then Lisandro Martinez gets injured before Everton. And then things get a little bit rough around the edges. And I think that's when it was less about the football that we might see I think the games you saw against Arsenal and the games you saw against Manchester City might be the football Manchester United try again next season more in the big teams. How they play against the smaller teams, I don't know yet, because I don't know who the defensive midfielder is.
Yep, fair. And maybe that's a good segue to talk about midfielders. So it seems to be the clear priority this summer, centre midfield. I think there's talk this week about Ederson being close. So Carl, in terms of your I guess your wishes, I know you've done many pieces on this, but what profile of midfielder is the type of midfielder you think we need heading into next season?
You need Roy Keane straight out of Nottingham Forest, right? Or you need, if you're getting a time machine give me a Manchester United themed time machine. You want young Roy Keane, you want Casemiro from his first season, you want young Michael Carrick. These are all different profiles, I'd say. I'm contradicting myself here. Carrick was asked in one of his final press conferences if the intention is just to buy a football player who can work next to Mainoo and run it. And he said, well, no, it's not as simple as that, because you're going to go from playing a 40-game season to be playing more matches. And while, yes, you want players that are suitable to play next to Mainoo, you also want players that can offer you certain things on and off the ball. I'd say the need for ground coverage isn't going to be as large as it was under Ruben Amorim. The ability to drop deep and collect the ball off the centre-backs is useful, but not necessarily a priority, because Mainoo can do that. You will need someone who can be a progressive passer, because Mainoo is going to play there. This is me talking about the number 6, the Casemiro successor, right? Mm-hmm. So person's got to be a good tackler, got to have great spatial awareness, right? One thing I'm now constantly looking for whenever I'm in the tactics truck is I want to see the opposition team doing a counter-attack, and I want to know where this defensive midfielder that I'm scouting or watching, where they're standing, and when that cutback pass happens, are they still in the edge of the box to cut out the cutback pass? Because Casemiro is very good at that. If I'm looking at their tackling, one thing I've now begun to look at way more is I will just queue up 20 or 30 of their standing tackles, and I'll just watch if those standing tackles, if the technique looks repeatable, because there is a consistency to Casemiro's tackling technique that Manu Ugarte does not have. Ugarte can do 10 different tackles, and his standing tackle will look different every single time. And maybe this is me assigning aesthetic quality to, maybe it's me assigning aesthetics over technique, and I should be told off here. And your listeners can tell me off here. But I think if you are in a position where you make a lot of tackles, I would like it if you've got maybe 2 to 3 go-to tackles, because that makes me a little bit more comfortable knowing, in this area I do this, in this area I do this, and this is how I go. This is how I make sure I get the ball safely without getting a booking. Whereas if I see up and down different tackling techniques, I'm going, oh, hang on, that's a bit erratic. I think aerial ability is very, very important. I'd say Mainoo of 2024 wasn't great in the air. Mainoo's getting better in the air, but the person next to him needs to be good, above average, if not great in the air. The set piece threat, we'll figure that bit out later as well. So you are looking for a 6. Now the question is, and I said this on Stretford Paddock as well, in the Premier League now, with the pace of everything, do number 6s exist, or is everyone a 6-8 hybrid? Is Carlos Baleba a 6? Yes, sort of, but he's so athletic and hypermobile that he can be a box-to-box midfielder if you sign another 6 next to him. Is Sandro Tonali a 6? To me, no. He's a box-to-box midfielder.
Yep.
But some clubs and some people in football believe that he could be a 6 one day. I'm not sure if he could be a number 6 for Manchester United. I think he'd be an interesting signing at, say, Liverpool next to Ryan Gravenberch. If you gave me unlimited budget, I'm going to try and move mountain to try and sign Elliot Anderson. I said this on Talk of Levels. I think he's amazing. This is a very awkward thing in that, is he worth 100 million? Probably not, right? He's probably 90 million. But then you add in the fact he's an England international and he's playing for Nottingham Forest, and Nottingham Forest owner is particularly demanding in the negotiation. That'll push it up to 100 million. And then you go, well, he's also quite young, so his wages need to be good. You've got to factor in that price. And you've also got to factor in the fact that he's playing in a very sought after position in a summer where teams like Liverpool and Manchester City will be looking out for him as well. So that price will definitely go above 100 million. Do Manchester United have the budget to spend 100 million plus on Elliot Anderson? I don't know. Are they going to try? Yeah, I think they're going to make an effort. Are they going to try harder than everyone else to try and get their deal done? Going by the noises I'm hearing in and around the club, they might lose to Manchester City, which is painful. And I think the idea of Elliot Anderson playing next to Rodri really scares me. But hey, okay, then you got to be inventive. And you got to look
Rodri could go to Real Madrid, so you never know.
Rodri could go to Real Madrid, so you never know. So then you got to look into your other options.
Then do we get Tchouaméni maybe? I mean, when you were describing that player, athletic, tall, strong tackler, is Tchouaméni in that kind of profile for you? Would fit next to Mainoo maybe?
I think Tchouaméni and Mainoo would be fun. I think his heading ability can get overlooked. I think he goes through a tremendous amount of dog work for Real Madrid. And I think he's unfortunately a victim of the lopsided lack of structure at Real Madrid. I think he's a much better football player than people have described in the last 18 months. And he is one of the biggest losers since Toni Kroos's retirement at Real Madrid.
Yeah.
I think one of the many problems at Real Madrid right now is they don't have an outright centre forward. Because to me, Mbappe can play centre forward. He is not a centre forward in my eyes. He's still better as a left winger. He's like I tweeted this morning. I want to see Mateta play as centre forward for France at this World Cup. I want to see what Mbappe will make of him, because I think Mateta pinning centre backs and running their post will be really, really useful for Mbappe. I think another problem Real Madrid have right now is they don't have a progressive passer from deep. Modric is at AC Milan, Toni Kroos is this way, so Tchouaméni has to take on more progressive passing duties, which he is okay at. I don't think he's Toni Kroos level, because I don't think many football players of the 21st century are Toni Kroos level in terms of progressive passing.
What about Adam Wharton? He's good passer, isn't he?
I was going to say, Cole, you're always saying we need to sign Michael Carrick. Is Wharton the next?
I mean, yeah, Adam Wharton's basically Michael Carrick's godson, right? He's phenomenal. I think he's a fantastic football player. I think Crystal Palace are well within their rights to put a very high price tag on him. Would midfield three of Wharton, Mainoo, and Fernandes work?
Athletic,
possibly.
I think you, Cole, you were saying the ground coverage and the running,
positioning. Carrick was so good at positioning, which makes up for ground coverage sometimes.
Yes.
I think a big point though we need to talk about, and Carl's touched on it, is the evolution of like the Premier League over the last 2 to 3 years. It's gone from having outright 6s and 8s to these hybrids because of the athleticism just all over the pitch, right? It's not just your centre midfield, it's your fullbacks. They need to be able to press, etc. So I think that kind of clouds the judgment of Mainoo and Wharton working because of the physicality side of it.
I mean, there's also the question of, if you do, let's say hypothetically, Manchester United do spend the money and got Adam Wharton, then you go, okay, we've got Wharton. That means midfielder number 2 is someone who can play next to Wharton, and Mainoo will play next to other midfielder instead. Not a disaster. I like watching Adam Wharton play football. However, as I'm constantly yelling on social media, just because I like watching a football player doesn't necessarily mean I think they would fit in at Manchester United. Wharton should be at the World Cup. I understand why Thomas Tuchel was not taking it, but he should be at the World Cup for England, in my opinion. I think Wharton's a very good player. I think Tchouaméni is a very, very good player, and I've been a fan of him for a very, very long time. I said it before, when Real Madrid signed Tchouaméni, I got so angry my girlfriend had to drag me to a pub to calm down. I think Carlos Baleba is a very, very good player. I am interested in, I've also said this before, if Carlos Baleba's form has dipped because he was being linked to being a Manchester United player, is he going to be able to cope with the difficulty of being a Manchester United player? However, I think he's a very, very good football player. I think his passing ability is overlooked. I think he's a better passer than he's currently letting on. And there are times when I'm watching him play for Brighton and he hits a switch maybe once a game. And I'm going, what would happen if the coach told you had to hit 4? Could you do that? And I think the answer might be yes. He's a fantastic football player. I think he'd be very, very good. I've spoken before about how I think Tonali would probably make more sense at Liverpool rather than Manchester United at this point in time, because I think one thing that gets overlooked with Tonali is he's not great in the air. And if you want to play, I'm sorry, your number 6 has to be good in the air now. in the Premier League, in this current era of the Premier League. I've spoken to various analysts, and they think the Premier League now paces between 10 to 20% quicker than where it was in 2014. And even then in 2014, it was still pretty quick. You want a really good, a fun, soft, crude metric to measure how quick a Premier League game is going. You watch a Premier League game, Premier League team A loses the ball, click your fingers, and then you click your fingers again when the opposite team has a shot on goal. And you just...
Yeah.
Once you do that, and you go, oh, that's how quick this game is going. And there have been routinely multiple games this season where players lost the ball and within 4 seconds, bang, they've conceded. And you're like, that's how quick it takes now. Whereas if you are, say, watching a Europa League game, or a Europa League game not involving Premier League teams, or a Conference League game, that distance might be twice as much. I spoke to Yaya Toure before Euro 2020, partway through Euro 2020, I should say. And he said when he was playing in Greece and when he was playing in Spain, he probably had 4 seconds on the ball when he went to collect it off the centre-backs. He could collect the ball off centre-backs, back to goal, and I got maybe 4 seconds before someone's sniffing down my neck. He said he got to Man City and he maybe had 2.
Yeah.
And I think you can feel this also with strikers, in that, particularly when strikers first come to the Premier League now, what you're feeling is they get one touch. You get one touch before you can do the thing you want to do. And very often that one touch should be shoot. And I felt this with Seshko at the start of the season, where he thought he had 2 seconds more than he actually had. Whereas you saw Seshko, particularly around the Aston Villa game, I thought it was really good, Mother's Day, where I went, you figured out you don't get an extra touch now. And these are like tiny, tiny, tiny factors you need to get involved in there. And I think especially if you're a central midfielder, you need to be comfortable collecting the ball with your back towards the opposition there. You need to not panic when you're in possession. That thing where if you're playing 5-a-side or if you're playing 11-a-side, we did the football game at Old Trafford the other day, and where someone goes, time, man on! And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Did I have time or did I have man on? But it's this idea of you need to be a football player who doesn't panic when it goes time man on, actually.
On that note, Carl, Matías Fernandes, thoughts on him?
He's good. He's real good. Bruno Fernandes is a fan, and he's a fan of Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah.
Again, look, if we're doing the sort of, I don't know what Manchester United are going to do, but if money was no issue, and for some reason Jason Wilcox rang me up and said, I'm buying 3 midfielders, Carl, who should I buy? I'd say make sure one of them is Matías Fernandes.
Okay.
Because I think Manchester United are going to go out and buy 6. Manchester United are going to go out and buy an 8 style player who can job share with Mainoo, and they might go get a third midfielder, or that third midfielder might be an academy player. I think your 8 job share Mainoo person, I think if you can get Matías Fernandes for a good price, that would be very sensible.
Yeah. And just very quickly, we talked about CM, but like, what are the other priority positions for you this summer? Like, I know.
For me, okay. So for me, this is me taking off my journalism hat and me putting on my I am a Manchester United and I'm squad building hat. Look, I'm always going to say buy as many midfielders as you need to buy. So I'm going to, if this was me playing Football Manager, if this was me playing FIFA, I am buying 2 central midfielders to start with. I am going to buy
centre back.
Actually, do you see Dorgu as a left back? Because he's been playing more as a left winger, right?
He's been playing more as a left winger, but I think what's interesting is he's been playing more as a left winger in games where it's more 50-50 in terms of possession. So very, very good against Manchester City, very, very good against Arsenal, very good against Brighton. Games where the possession balance was, up and down. I'm not sure about Dorgu at left wing in a match where Manchester United will be expected to dominate possession, because he's more of a kick rush football player, right? He's not about skill moves. What he tends to do is he takes a deliberately heavy touch and then chases after it and he scoops it towards the back post, which is a little bit crude, but it's effective. I thought it was very good at Villa Park in a defeat where Bruno Fernandes went off and Lisandro Martinez played in defensive midfield, so you can have more humble pie there. And I think there will definitely be games where Dorgu will be the left winger, because he can get up and down the field, particularly in those bigger games, right? If you want someone who can run in behind, Dorgu can make those runs in behind. He can get those crosses to the back post. And then also, if you are in a transitional moment and you need to defend, Dorgu is going to track back, and not only track back, but he's going to fill into the space inside of Luke Shaw. and really, really help. He did that a lot against Arsenal, and that was amazing. So that will be useful. Is he going to be able to do that in a game against, say, Coventry? I'm not sure yet. So I think there might be some merit in trying to test the market for a left winger. I don't necessarily think it's a massive priority. Ori and I are split on this, in that I think if you've got 50 million to get a football player right now, you should try and get a 50 million left back rather than try and get a 50 million winger, because I think you get more bang from your buck at fullback with 50 million.
One in East London, Carl?
You're talking about Diouf at West Ham. I have called on Diouf. I was high on him.
Interesting.
I was high on him towards I was high on him at the start towards the start of the season when Ruben was there. Look, he can really whip in across. He can really get that ball towards the back stick. And I think if he were to be a Manchester United football player, I think he might finish the season with 5, maybe even 10 assists. His ability to defend crosses.
Totally agree.
And this is something I've had more West Ham fans talk to me about when that clip is now on Instagram, on YouTube. So every now and again, a West Ham fan will find me on Instagram like, funny, you have no idea how bad he is at this. I'm going, why are you telling me this? Don't you want the 70 million? What? This is the way of football, right? People get so excited at telling you that you're wrong. Where? Yeah. Left back?
Yeah, left back.
No, I don't know yet. I've not done my shopping for Michael Carrick. I didn't know who I was shopping for, right? Until the other week. So I haven't quite fired up the machine, and I've also got a World Cup to prepare for. So I will start my shopping for later on. But for me, I'm going central midfielder, left back, backup centre forward.
Lewandowski?
No, behave.
Would you do it?
No. Why would you do Lewandowski?
Bit mentor for Sesko, Champions League nights at Old Trafford, big name, puff the chest out. Isn't that what United's about?
Huh. Okay.
Okay. No, I'm just throwing names out there. But obviously, free transfer. Yeah, that's probably the big
free transfers aren't okay. Free transfers aren't free. And what about Lewandowski strikes you as he's going to be comfortable sitting on the bench for Manchester United?
Maybe wants to play in the Premier League. It's the only big European league he's not done. That's the only kind of.
Are you trying to convince me or are you trying to convince you?
Bit of both, to be fair. Bit of both.
To be honest, if Steve had unlimited budget, he'd be signing Harry Kane.
Harry Kane.
Bearing in mind, I suggested signing Modric when he was probably 32, 33. I felt he could still do a job at United. So
why are you signing old players for Manchester United?
He loves it.
Experience.
We did sign, and Cavani did okay a little bit here and there. Zlatan came at the end of his career, did a bit of here and there. And it's a good question. Is the backup striker? Someone who wants to play all the time.
We get this question a lot. Should we go out and buy?
We did at Sheringham, for example.
Should we go out and buy an experienced backup striker? And what my eyebrow thing is: who are these football players? Who is this football player who can score 10 Premier League goals in a season and is perfectly fine sitting on the bench? Who's this person who can score 10 goals, is going to be fit, is going to be perfectly happy to sit on the bench for Manchester United and isn't going to be too expensive? This is why I also said I think the backup centre forward might just end up being Mbeumo.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Just quickly, what about centre back? Are you comfortable there, or would you like to beef that up ideally?
Andy Mitten said Manchester United might be on the lookout for defensive leader. I really like Aiden Heaven. I want to see more of Aiden Heaven, particularly in possession. I want to see what can he do in terms of pinging it. The situation with Matthias de Ligt, I think, means you want to create a defensive situation where de Ligt doesn't, when he does come back, he doesn't have to rush himself back. Much like with Lisandro Martinez. That there was going to be a point where Martinez was going to come back, but the idea was he doesn't have to rush. He doesn't necessarily have to hit the ground running. And I think that's happened with Matthias de Ligt right now. I think the starting, if everyone's fit, match day one, centre-back partnership will be Harry Maguire and Lisandro Martinez. And then Aiden Heaven will probably go on and play more games next season. I'll be really interested to see how he plays in the Champions League too. And then hopefully Laniero can self-right. There are enough bodies right now without needing to delve into the market. And that is hopefully Matthias de Ligt can play football before Christmas. So I wouldn't necessarily think that you have to go out by a centre-back before January. But you tell me, what's your opinion? Would you like to get a centre back?
I would personally. I feel like we could do with a world class centre back. More of the extra games next season as well. Like
Okay.
I don't trust the fitness of De Ligt based on what we've seen. Maguire's had a good season, deserved to go to the World Cup, but again, I don't know how many games he can play next season. I think it's 33, 34 next season. Martinez.
I mean, Maguire's been durable.
Yeah,
Maguire's been
over the
durable in
years.
the past. So what sort of centre? So you want a world class centre back? Was that necessarily to play on the left or the right?
Good question. I couldn't even. I just feel like we need a lead, a centre back leader. You know, like Arsenal have got Gabriel. Like we need that type of leader at the back. I just feel like our centre backs at the moment are makeshift. They're just like centre backs we've signed over the last 5 years. You know, for different managers with different styles of play. So
It's
I couldn't give you a name.
Centre backs.
Yeah, I
Tempo
couldn't give you a
setting
name.
centre back. I mean, that sort of centre back is so rare nowadays. The tempo setting
know.
centre back. That's like the Thiago Silva type, the Sergio Ramos type. We don't see him as much now, if only because if you are going to pay so much money for a centre back, they tend to be younger than 25, which means we're not getting that. Pardon my I'm going to sound like my dad a little bit. We don't get grown men at centre back in the same way you used to, because you have to give them time, which means they have more time to unfortunately get embarrassed, which can sometimes take away from that aura.
What
for lack of a
about
better term, of those
That's the
Senesi?
word.
Senesi on a free from Bournemouth.
Would you
He's
be
not
interested in that?
He's not work. I would if the money and the budget's there, because
Mhm.
he's the type of defender that I think Steve's talking about in terms of gets on the pitch. I think Andy talks about it a lot with Leacher, right? Like, you know, you need your players on the pitch, you need your money on the pitch. So that's an option, but is it going to be a priority? I don't think so. The rumours are that he's going to Spurs, even though that's a bit mental going to Spurs.
Oh, really? I've not heard that rumour.
Yeah. So
You have to tell me. I don't listen to the rumours, so half the time.
no,
when someone goes
yeah. I mean,
half the time people go
yeah.
to rumours. This, I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, that's why I think there's an opportunity to do it, right? So, like I said, as you touched upon, no free transfers free, but I think the signing on fee and wages for someone like Senesi is doable, even with everything we need to do. Yeah, a world-class centre-back, you're talking top money. And I don't even know who we would consider when we're talking centre-back, like world-class.
Final question: prediction for United next season, Carl. What can we do? Is Project 2028 on? Is 21?
United win a lot, mate.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes,
Win a lot.
Playful, love it. Cool. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Carl, you've been so generous with your time. It was worth the wait. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll let you get cracking on the World Cup next. Is that right for you?
A tactic struck for me first. I should probably start watching Ederson games, shouldn't I?
Okay. Interesting. Cool. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. And we'll catch you on the next episode.